Want to learn how to become a more prolific writer? Then this is the show for you. Welcome to Write This, the author interview show. My name is Tonya Ellis, and I am the host, and I'm happy to have you on today to learn about being a more prolific writer from my guest, Kate Aronson. Kate is a picture book author who had 5 books purchased in 1 year, so I'm excited to pick her brain and learn about what that process was like, and also to learn about what her life is like as an expat. She lives overseas as she furthers her writing career. So we will welcome her on in just a minute. I want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode. Let's get her on. It's here. So it'll be great. And thank all of you for joining. I see a lot of people here, and it's good to have you. Kate, how are you?
Hi, Tonya. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, good.
I know this can be nerve-wracking with technology. I was out all day and I saw a message from you. I'm like, oh no, but I knew you'd be fine. So you're here. Yes.
Okay. I had to reboot everything and then it was fine. So when in doubt,
Right.
Just turn it all off and turn it on again.
Yes, but I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Thank you for agreeing to come on.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. Wonderfully kind of you. And, I can't always be here for the lives that you do, but I was here for Nadia Solomon's interview with you last time and just loved it. So it's a great series you're doing, and thank you for having me. So
Yes, and I've been seeing your books on, I think the book on Clovis on Amazon list, so they're best-selling books as well with the different picture books you have. So that is phenomenal.
yeah, that's, Clovis just came out in this past August. And yeah, the book's done really well so far. So, you just never know. You do your best, you put your books out there and you hope for the best. So this is wonderful. But it's not necessarily something I was expecting. So yeah, feeling really fortunate about that one.
Now let's learn a little bit about you, Kate. Are you, are you in Paris now, or where is it that you're located?
Yeah, I'm not in Paris. I'm actually on the French-Swiss border. So I'm in the Jura Mountains of France.
Oh.
And I'm practically on the border of Switzerland.
Okay.
Because I actually work in Switzerland. My husband and I are teachers. So, we're kind of between 2 countries, but technically in France. So
Okay,
in the mountains. Yeah.
that sounds cool. I actually studied French in school, and I lived in Strasbourg for a year during my college years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I never got to Switzerland, that area. So I loved, it was very great, wonderful experience.
Well, you definitely could, especially, now obviously you don't have to speak French to come over here and travel because most people speak English, but you could try out your French in Switzerland. France is not the only francophone country. You could
Right, exactly.
Why not try out your French if you have any left, right? You get to
But I really remember a lot because I went to Quebec in Canada. I can still speak. I make a lot of grammatical errors.
Sure.
But I can carry on a conversation and understand, when I'm talking.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
definitely you have to come back over here and, call me up and take a day in Switzerland and try out your French.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about your background. So I didn't know you have an accent yourself. So you're not from America originally, are you?
I am. It's just I've been here for so long. And my ear is just really sensitive to languages. So what's happened is over the years, and I haven't been back. I'm actually from Southern California originally. I haven't been back to the
French.
States.
You sound like a French woman.
I know. It's time to come back home and get rid of that. I don't do it on purpose, just for the record. And when I watch these interviews afterwards, or I hear my voice recorded, it's just awful. So it is not on purpose, but it's just from living here. and being immersed for so long, haven't been back to the States in 4 years, really trying to come back this summer to get
Okay.
my normal accent back.
Yeah, that's cool. This is
Among
so
other things.
interesting. Yeah. So how did you end up there? Tell us your backstory and how did you start writing too?
Okay, well, yeah, you know, I didn't travel a lot as a young kid. I never traveled outside California, not much at all. Maybe what, you know, to Mexico, to New York, but never outside the country. And so when I was 20 years old, there was a study abroad program at my college, and I just suddenly was so curious about the outside world, and I just really wanted to go to Europe. So I signed up for that program, and that was actually a program with Cambridge University in England. So I started out in Cambridge, England, and then from there, with my classmates, and then the years following that experience, I just kept traveling in Europe. And the more I saw of Europe, the more I fell in love with it. I ended up backpacking the continent, and just couldn't get enough. And then when I was 25 years old, about 25, I think, yeah, I decided just to go for it and try living over here. Which was a huge risk, and I definitely paid dearly for it. But it was just something that had been a dream since not since I was very young, but since the age of 20, when I had finally, you know, studied abroad. And so just for 5 years, I kept on trying to find ways of coming back over to Europe. And finally, you know, I had a few friends over here, and I just kind of went for it. So I started out in Marseille in the south of France, and then started moving around little by little. Lived in Switzerland for a while. But, you know, along the way, I had been an au pair in Italy. So I've moved around a bit, traveled around a bit. And it wasn't until I had, you know, learned the language, settled down, you know, found a steady job and all of that, that I felt calm enough in my life to actually then start seriously writing and trying to be published. Because until then, I would say the first 10 years in Europe, I was just trying to survive.
Right.
You know, when I came
But what
over
got
here,
you interested in writing children's books? What piqued that interest in the first place?
well, that's something that goes back to the very beginning. Since I was a little kid, I loved children's literature as a kid, of course, and I just never grew out of it. It was something that was considered really special in my family. My parents loved to read us stories and to tell us stories. So it was just something that was appreciated in our family, I think, literature in general. But my mom really had a love of children's books. And so I think I never grew out of that. And growing up, I was always writing stories and drawing and hoping that someday I could be published. So that was a little dream that was always there. So, you know, even in my 20s, I was dabbling in SCBWI. I was going to some conferences.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea what I was doing, but I was trying.
Right. Okay.
So that dream was there, and that dream had been there for the longest time. And then once I moved to Europe, I had to you know, focus on surviving, like I said. And that just kind of went on to the back burner, and I didn't pick it up again until life had really settled down. In about 2015 is when I really buckled down, and I said to myself, okay, you want to be published. It's time to put your nose to the grindstone and do it. So 7 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago, is when I finally got serious, even though the dream had always been there. So
Okay, that's really interesting. So, yeah, it's interesting when I'm talking to all these different authors, how a lot of us have similar backgrounds and things. So that's very interesting to me. Now, do you have children of your own, or?
I don't. I don't have children of my
Okay.
own. I've always, you know, worked with children in some capacity. Definitely thought I would have children of my own, and it just hasn't worked out up until now, so we'll see.
Right.
So yeah, I don't have children of my own, and that's one big thing, you know, when mothers, for example, ask, well, how do you find time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have children, so how can I
Right.
really speak to that? I have a lot on my plate, but I don't have children, and so huge respect for moms and especially mothers trying to, you know, sandwich in that time,
Yeah.
invest in their writing,
Yeah.
and to the point that they can make it go, you know. um, it's rough. It really
Right.
is
It's a
rough.
lot. Now, let
And I
me
know
ask
you,
you. Oh, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna
Sorry.
say you, I was gonna say you were a mom.
Yes, I have three children, but two of them are in college, but one is in high school. But I'm learning it doesn't end even when they go to college. You still,
Right.
they
Yeah,
need you in
sure.
different ways. It still takes time, and you're still a mother. So I've
Sure.
learned that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you've had to as well, because you're quite prolific, you've had to find time to invest on the side.
Right. For me as a mom, what I did was work really, I work best in the morning. So I would just get up before everyone else and
Right.
make sure I had that time so nothing could take that time away. So that's what I advise people to do. Find the time that works
Right.
best for you and kind of
Sleep
block it out.
less, but
Yeah. And keep it for
right.
yourself. But I was so excited when I learned that you had 5 books published in 1 year or purchased in 1 year. So how did that come about? And were they all picture books?
Yeah, they were all picture books. So, yeah, I think it was roughly a calendar year. I now have sold 6.
Wow.
Um, so it did slow down during the pandemic. For people thinking that happened during the pandemic, no, I sold only 1 during those years. Um, but yeah, it was 2019 to 2020. Excuse me. And well, I sold the first piglet in 2019, and then very quickly they asked for a sequel. So just so people know what I'm referring to, right? Sorry for my
That's
ring
so
light there.
cute. Yeah.
So that's the first one, and then actually this one, Clovis, sold just a few months after that, and then very quickly after that, Penguin Random House asked me for a sequel to the first piglet, so that we go from perfumes to pastries, so going from smells to tastes. And then a few months later, this one sold, and it's coming out in this June.
Pooh done it. Pooh done it.
Right. This is a mystery,
Okay.
as you can see.
Ooh.
And then one more sold so that following spring, and that is called When PB Met Jay. So it's supposed to be the backstory of how peanut butter and jelly became best friends. So so these were all, I've sold 6 to 3 publishing houses. So again, once you establish a rapport with an editor, right, at a certain
Mhm.
publishing house, you can hope that they understand your artistic vision and they're going to want to work with you again, right? So you can always
Right.
hope that you won't have just one, but
Mhm.
you'll be asked for a sequel, or they'll like something else that you've done. So for now, you know, these all 6 books are coming out with 3 particular publishers, so Page Street Kids, Candlewick, and Penguin Random House.
Now, here's a question
Um,
I have, Kate.
sure.
Are you able to, like, say you got a deal with one publisher, can you get with another publisher simultaneously, or do they allow that, or how does that work?
Sure, you can. Yeah, I mean, especially because usually, well, I saw you just got an agent, by the way. Congratulations. So
Oh,
speaking of
thank
that,
you.
because the agent comes in here.
Mhm. Mhm.
So your agent, once you have a relationship with a certain editor, maybe they've already bought one of your books, for example, your agent is going to send other manuscripts of yours to those editors, you know, with a certain, your agent's going to give priority to those editors.
Mhm.
So those editors are going to see your work, and maybe one of them is going to want a certain book, and the other one is going to want another book of yours. There's
Mhm.
no problem at all working on several books at once with several different editors. So I don't
Right.
know if that answers your question or...
Well, I've been told by some people that, like, say you sold picture books, then you should write maybe like a middle grade or chapter book, or, but is that, but yours are all picture books, right? You sold all these picture books.
Yes, in fact, the one that I just sold, which is a mermaid story, which isn't coming out till 2025, that was almost going to be a middle grade,
Mhm.
and sometimes I wish I had, you know, just turned it into a middle grade. Since I don't have any middle grades out yet, I thought, oh, maybe I should have, you know, transformed that one into a longer story.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say that if you're known as a picture book writer, for now I have mostly picture books. I think my agent would be fine if I decided to do something a bit longer, like middle grade. But if you decide to do an adult novel, for example, that's enough of a change that you might want to establish yourself with a pseudonym, under a different name,
Right.
just to kind of create your brand and a different name with each brand. I don't
Right.
think industry gatekeepers mind as much if you do picture books and middle grade. That's not a huge jump,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if you decide to do something completely different, you decide to do something for adults, if it's so completely different from your platform, um, again, you could easily do something with an educational platform that was for a completely different age group, and that would
Mhm.
still be the what I would see as the Tonya Ellis brand, right? So
Right.
I think you have to think of it as the brand that you're creating, the style that you're creating.
Right. Right.
Um, so I don't know if you plan on doing picture books as well alongside your middle grades, but those things you can do simultaneously with no problem. I think that's considered more versatility than why is she writing it for a new age group.
Right. 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 Now, here's another question. So, you have been so prolific, and I became acquainted with you through the 12 by 12 picture book group or
Right.
challenge. So, does that help you, or what would your recommendations be for people who want to increase their output as writers? How are you doing all this?
Right. Um, well, again, and that's why I said right at the beginning that I don't have kids, right? Because I think that's important
Yeah.
to make that distinction. However, I have been through periods of my life where I was doing way too much at one time, you know, working two jobs and finishing a master's and trying to produce manuscripts at the same time, and it is really hard. And I would say that not all of us are able to write every day of the week. I think it's important to be clear about that. um, there was, I would say, for the last couple years, I have been able to set aside maybe one time a week when I really am focused on just my writing. So that's not every day. That's not even several days a week. That's one day a week that I would set aside and be completely focused, you know?
Mhm.
So I would encourage people to, yeah, if you can set aside one morning a week or one afternoon, as long as there's that one moment that's just for you. If you can do every day, if you can get up earlier than your family and work for an hour every day, that's amazing. But if you can't, try to find even one day a week. You know, for me, it used to be Sunday. And the whole entire week, I would just be preparing myself mentally, thinking about what I wanted to work on. You know, your brain keeps on working on your projects, even when you think you're not working on them. So,
Right.
so I would say, you know, you can always use that time to still be dreaming, to still be brainstorming. And then you make that special time for yourself, and you protect it and you honor it, and you know, you sit down and do the work. But I think at the beginning, and when I say at the very beginning of your career, I mean when nobody knows anything about you yet, you haven't sold a thing. I think it's really important too to reward yourself every little step of the way, every time you honor that work time, every time you show up, every time you get a critique from a critique partner, and then you manage to integrate that advice into your manuscript. Every little baby step you take, you really have to reward yourself, feel good about what you've done, because I think that we're all human and we need some kind of positive reinforcement to put a good habit, you know, get a good habit into place, and to keep on showing up and to keep on trying. And for the first year or two or three, the world is not necessarily going to give you anything back for the effort that you're putting in. So if you don't do that for yourself, if you don't pat yourself on the back, if you don't say, every time I write another page, I'm putting $1 in the jar, and then I'm going to go buy myself a new book, or I don't know. You really have to set those positive reinforcements up for yourself. And what I used to do was just to enter a bunch of little writing contests or send my work to magazines, because these tiny little wins or these tiny little publications just did so much to keep me in the game and to keep me trying. And again, it takes a lot of investment before it starts to pay off. So you just have to be there to pat yourself on the back every single time, so that you know, keep the habit.
Now, how important are critique groups and critique partners to the process?
So important. And I don't have a critique group per se, but I have critique partners that I've just met along the way. These are women I absolutely trust with my work. I don't have many of them. I would say I have maybe 4 or 5 ladies in my life whom I really, really trust with my work. But it's so important because we're just so close to our work, you know. You can't see the forest for the trees, and that's normal. That's completely normal. That happens to everyone. It doesn't matter how many times you've been published. Your first draft of anything is probably going to be pretty bad. And sometimes you just need people to tell you that, you know, you need that creative distance with your work that you're never going to fully have being the one who wrote the work. So really important to find people early on whom you trust, you know, that can push you, that can be honest with you, and still, you know, be nurturing, and still be people who are going to say, you know what, I believe in you, I see your talent, but you need to change this and this and this.
Right. But how are you doing all this
important
overseas? So is this through the internet, or how do you even know how to contact these people?
Yeah, well, 12 by 12 was a wonderful thing for me, because it really was at the beginning of all this. because I decided to get really serious submitting manuscripts in 2015, and I discovered 12 by 12 and signed up in 2016. So, so I think it's wonderful that you know about 12 by 12 as well. It was a big challenge for me because 12 by 12 was, you know, they have the online forum where you can post your full manuscript. And so I was a newbie at the time, and I started posting my manuscripts. That was terrifying, but I did it, and it was a big step for me to start getting feedback. And then little by little, that's how I met some of the ladies who are still critique partners with me today. You know, just reading each other's work, sharing feedback. So I would say, I'm glad you brought 12 by 12 up, because it started there for me, I think, because I had signed with an agent by, I think I signed with my agent in May of 2016. So it went very, very fast for me. And, you know, I think in a large part, it was thanks to the community that I found on 12 by 12, because yes, I'm very alone out here, you know, in the mountains of France.
And you had been doing that work for years really before, so you were ready, and then you just had that, you were right there. So that's great.
Right. I think at some point, you know, when you've had a dream inside you for a really long time, I think maybe there comes a time in your life when you suddenly have the time and the focus to just zero in on that, and then you just go for it. And so I think that's what happened to me, is I just finally arrived at this moment in my life that was calm enough that I could say, okay, this is what I want, and I'm going to go for just that, you know, because you do have to pursue your dreams with kind of a single-minded, you know, you got to put your blinders on and just go for it. So when you're ready to do that, you know, you put in the effort, and eventually, I really do think there's a tipping point that happens where you invest the time and the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears, and then everything eventually tips in your favor. That's how I see it. You know, that you've just got to reach that tipping point. And I hope that everyone experiences that. I think, you know, if you just show up and show up and show up and do the work, that eventually you can tip the scales in your favor.
Right. And I see that in that 12 by 12 group when you look at the people in there working. So it's very encouraging.
Right.
And that's wonderful advice. I was going to ask you for a question or like some kind of summary for those looking. And that's a perfect summation of putting in that work. And your success is a great example of this, because you were for years putting in the work. And then when you got the opportunity, things just started falling right in line.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think there is that element of luck for anyone, where you're just hoping that things will align, right? You're hoping that certain gatekeeper who is sensitive to the way you say things is going to see your manuscript at the right time. But it's hard. You can't control when the stars are going to align. All you can control is, you know, being there to keep on working on your manuscripts, and then having the courage to send them out. So
right, having the courage, that's another thing too, having that courage to send them out and believing in your work. So that's right. Now, what are you working on now, Kate? What's the next thing from you that we'll be seeing?
Well, the next thing that is coming out after, so again, 2025, unfortunately, we were hoping it would come out in 2024, and because of the pandemic, everything got pushed off. But yeah, my sixth picture book, which is coming out, I'm really excited about this one because it's my first picture book starring humans.
Oh.
So I know that sounds funny, but up until now, my books have been about animals or other anthropomorphized objects, inanimate objects. Um, so this one is exciting for me because it's starring humans and also mermaids. And it's a big departure from any other book of mine that's come out so far. I've had some silly books, some more soul-searching books, but this one is quite a serious book. I wouldn't say, it has a happy ending, but I would say there's a poignancy to this story. It's about a little girl who finds a baby mermaid washed up on her shore, and she takes this baby mermaid home, and she's convinced that this baby mermaid is basically a gift from the universe to her, and she's convinced that this baby mermaid is basically her little sister, and that she's going to be able to keep her forever. So it's different from my others, and it's dedicated to my mom, so it has a special place in my heart, and I'm really excited about it. So
that's good, and I'm sure there's so many mermaid lovers out there, so I'm sure they'll
right.
be excited to see that too.
Yes, I'm a mermaid book lover, so I thought I've got to do one of my own.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for your time. And where can people interested in learning about your work and your new releases, where can they contact and connect with you?
Yes, I would love anyone to reach out to me. I'm all over social media, so Instagram, I'm also on Twitter. My name is a little bit different. It's Mademoiselle Kate, but they can also just go to KateAronson.com. I'm all over the place, so yeah. Drop me a line.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing this wealth of information with us, Kate. And it was inspiring to me, so I'm sure it's inspiring to those who've tuned in and those who will be tuning in the future. Thank you for everyone who've joined us, and we'll see you back next week for another episode of Write This. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tonya. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.